Here's the thing, climate change is real. The question is it man-made or not? Look at the privilege on you. You didn't even know about it.
Yes.
You now sound like a racist.
All right, we are back and we brought in one of our favorite guests because why not? The timing is so appropriate. We're right coming up on words are hard today. Hold on. We are
We're
coming
right
up.
coming up on.
We are right coming up on election. This is going to be a big one. The world is divided. We have Mr. Anthony Russo, who is the founder of Truth Will Set You Free. He is a brilliant public speaker, stage speaker, and he also happens to be our guest today on the podcast. So, Mr. Russo, if there were any questions about who you're supporting in this election, I think we can squash all that today.
Or I lost a bet, one or the other. Regardless, though, for having pregnancy brain, you crushed it. I mean, that was pretty good.
Thanks.
You did good. You did good, kid.
Thank you so much. I love the cowboy hat. I'm loving the whole decor. You did just pick up your mug shot. If you'd like to share that with the viewers.
We got mug. This is creative. We've had this for a while, but I feel like it's apropos.
Mm-hmm. And for those of you who
sounds bad, people are going to think I'm promoting him being a dictator.
This is true. This is, that's going to come up too. So for those who are listening and not viewing, you do have a sweater on. It's a Trump Fans 2024, and your cup is Mr. Trump's mugshot printed on a cup, which is just hilarious.
Isn't that exactly the Obama image, like the colorization though?
So that's the fun part. It is the Obama hope colored image. Can I say colored? African American. Just kidding.
That's a POC, person of color image.
If you can't tell, this is going to be a politically incorrect probably episode, but yeah, it's got that color to it. It's got the Obama hope color with an angry looking Trump face.
I like it.
Understood. Anthony, what are your thoughts right now going into November 6th? Are you hearing both sides? Do you have a perspective around what's going on in the world?
So you may not know this. Last week I did a video. I did this in 2020 as well, where how could a decent, normal, caring, empathetic human being be a Trump supporter? And I went live and just talked for a couple hours. 2 years or 4 years ago, there was a lot of interaction. I gave the link. I'm like, jump on. I gave a call in, and it was good. It was very interactive. This year, I had a bunch of people, when I posted about it, line up a bunch of different items that they wanted me to cover, which I covered this year. Ultimately, I want to, it's more about humanizing. It's like there was just the rally in Madison Square Garden where there's been multiple presidents in the past that have gone to Madison Square Garden, but for some odd reason, the left is sticking with this, finding a way to Hitlerize and Naziize, not just Trump, but his followers. So I see the division on both. I'm seeing the arguments for people back and forth. One of the guys that was the hardest on my post, I just had dinner with in Columbus, Ohio a couple days ago. And it's like, we talked about politics for all of about 22 seconds in person, whereas online, you could tell we just vehemently oppose each other. So the one thing we talked about at dinner is that social media was created to connect people. And in the end, I think that's the difference between now and 30 years ago of why there is so much division. There's nothing special about these candidates that make them any worse than 32 years ago, where and you're talking about Bush, who is a warmonger, and you're talking about Clinton, who is a philanderer, and they're both flawed. They're humans. Everybody's human. Our current situation, it's human. And for some odd reason, we've become so tribal in our beliefs that the division is at a very disgusting point.
Yeah, I think so too. It sounds like, there's something that actually I want to bring up. So David and I were talking about this. We find that if you're a Trump supporter, you have to kind of stay quiet. You don't have to, but people who vote more for Kamala have no problem voicing opinions, sending pictures, posting. But the second there's an opinion from somebody on the opposite side, it's immediately like, how dare you? For instance, I have a group message with a project I'm working with, and the guy sent a picture of him with a
Project
cutout.
2025? No.
Yeah, no. A picture of him with Kamala. He's like, look who I ran into voting. And I wanted so badly to respond and be like, yeah, well, do we really want to open this door of conversation? Are you open for me to share maybe a picture of me with a Trump cutout? I'm not saying I voted for Trump or I'm voting for Trump. I'm just saying, but there's this moment where
your vote doesn't matter. It's Florida. I'm just kidding. Every vote matters.
It does.
Get out and vote. Anyway.
But I think what happens is Trump supporters get really frustrated because the left feels like they can just constantly voice their opinion and constantly be like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And then when the right does it, it feels very much like we have to be hidden. Like you can't talk about it. It's this hush hush thing. And I wanted to hear your perspective on if you had any insight as to why that happens, or are there do we have hidden Trump supporters because they're afraid to speak their mind of what the retaliation is going to be from the left?
Yeah, it's a loss of career. It's a loss of job. I'm a prime example of somebody that is incredibly outspoken, and I still know the risks that lie in this. Like again, right around, most people already know where I stand just because I do have a political show, but right now, obviously, but I started wearing this to airports because I go out of my way to be extra kind, extra like, how can I help? Because I want to prove it to people that we're just like them. And in many ways, we're more respectful to other people. I hate to say that, and I don't want to speak in blanket terms, but the Trump side is more, the conservative side is more old school, more respectful of women, more whatever. It's something to see. But I posted a picture of me at the airport with my Trump hat on. Again, this is not stuff I did 4 or 5 months ago, but I want to normalize the ability to be a Trump supporter. And still be a decent human. So I put this on and I said, I officially came out today, obviously to grab attention. I came out as a Trump supporter. And there was a lot of vitriol in the comments, a lot of support in the comments, but one of them was from a woman that had transitioned to a man who has a family and genderqueer children. That's how he refers to them, under the age of 6 or 7. And he was incredibly vicious in his commentary, saying, do I not have female friends? Do I not have LGBTQ friends? Both incredibly wrong. Do I not have immigrant friends? Really, really wrong. And also, I think that that's preposterous to think that legal immigrants are not Trump supporters. They're some of the biggest Trump supporters I know. So it just shows that you have to be careful because you will be canceled. And if you look at the fact that Democrat actors right now are either getting paid or unprovably getting paid to come out, people go, how can you prove they're getting paid? I go, I can tell you, even if they're not getting a dollar amount to be on stage with Kamala Harris, what they are getting, Kamala Harris, pronounce it right, Anthony, what they are definitely getting is the ability to continue to work. Republicans that are outwardly voicing their opinion, which you're not going to see very many in Hollywood, are getting canceled. They're having to create their own films, like Quaid, Dennis Quaid, perfect example with Reagan and everybody knowing his belief system. He is outside of Christian studios. His career, for the most part, in Hollywood right now is over. If you're voicing opinions, so the monetary value is continuing to be able to work. I'm the same way. I work for what would be a conservative network, but the sports are a little bit different. And there is an underground group of like 4 or 5 of us that are like fist bumping each other over the same topic. So it's like there is still this demonization of anybody that is a Trump supporter, which is insane to me because half the country is Trump voters, but somehow they've been grouped into this hateful mass.
I know. What is that? I can't understand, because the people that I know that are publicly, outspokenly voting for Trump are some of the most incredible people. They're generous. They have queer gendered children. I think the blanket statement that you don't support immigrants and that you're a fascist and that you're racist, and those labels are that couldn't be farther from the truth. Yeah. And it's hard for me to wrap my head around it. And this name calling thing is very triggering for me, and I hear a lot, there's just name calling on both sides. And I wish we could set the personal feelings aside and just get to the nitty gritty of what's happening. What are we saying? The same thing? I think we're saying the same thing. You're just calling me a name, I'm calling you a name, and
yeah, it's a misunderstanding of people's ideology. That's the big thing. It's like, and I don't want to point fingers at the left, because trust me, there are some people on the right. I mean, my political channel is an echo chamber, so I get it. And I see some of the comments and I'm like, that's not the way to interact with people.
Agreed.
But if you're looking at the mass, I mean, it's one of those things. I would rather be called stupid than a Nazi, especially since I'm half Jewish.
Yeah.
It's very awkward to me.
Yeah.
So it's like there is just this brainwashing that's happened, and there's probably no more offensive term that's like, you're so weak that you've been brainwashed. However, when you start to believe the media, and there's a whole philosophy, and not believe the media, but hook, line, and sinker. And there's a term for it, and I can't think of it off the top of my head, but there's a term for it where it's a bias where it's the first thing you hear. And I remember hearing one of the major media networks, ex-VPs during COVID, talking about the importance of being whatever the message they want out, they want to get it out first, because changing somebody's mind once they hear it is it's a certain level of bias, and it's incredibly confusing for people to try to shift that cognitive dissonance. So when the information is out first and over and over and over again from all the different networks, all the way from your local news to ABC National, NBC National, to the CNN's, Fox, MSNBC has gotten disgusting that even CNN is calling them out, which I find amazing when Anderson Cooper's like, we're not like them. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but
Yeah.
So it's like you get pounded with the same belief system that somebody is a certain way. And it's like, although people deem Trump as hateful and racist, all he talks bad about is journalists with no integrity and other politicians. He constantly talks about bringing all people together. And the leftist politicians, specifically leadership, whether it be Joe Biden to Kamala Harris to Walz or whatever he is, they talk poorly about the individual voter. That's how you create division. That's the weird part to me. Like, that's I don't understand how people don't see this. Their politicians are spreading hate, yet they're blaming Trump for doing it because they're the first to say it. They were the first to say that he's a fascist. They're the ones to point those rules for radicals that direction. And it's what's created the issue all the way down to the people. It's a trickle down system to where technically hate is trickled down, and that's kind of where we are.
Do you think
I
it's...
have a,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I have a question to follow up on the just all the media connecting and having the opinion. What do you think it is about the media where they all somehow get the same exact keywords, like weird, or Kamala on Fox News, it got testy, and there was like 10 different networks that are like testy.
Yeah.
What is that? How do they all come together on the left and create the same?
A couple of them, a couple of it is based off of targeted messaging. And again, it is a trickle down system. When it came to messaging around COVID and pharmaceuticals and all that stuff, to me, and I don't remember if we talked about it in the last episode, but there's a directive that is given to these networks. And this shouldn't be a conspiracy because it's common sense. So we're one of 2 countries in the world that allows pharmaceutical advertising on their television.
And ours is 70% more than New Zealand's.
Right. Yeah. 70% of the advertisements and money that goes into specifically mainstream media, which is CNN, Fox, NBC, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, is pharmaceutical. Nobody, when you look at a commercial, the whole purpose of a commercial is to go out and be incited to buy something or be a consumer. When it comes to pharmaceuticals, that's not what people are doing. They're not like, oh man, I see this commercial about XYZ heart drug that could be for me. It can cause oily discharge. Like, I want to go talk to my doctor and get this. It's not like that at all. People are going to get prescribed whatever their doctor tells them to do. So then you have to think about the why. The why is when you're spending that much money on news networks, you get to control a narrative. So when you control the narrative, it's like, think about it. There's no way that CNN is going to speak out against Pfizer when they know that that all of their people working there are paid by those advertisements. So they control the media. That's why other countries don't allow it. So when it comes to specific messaging that is on repeat, like when it went back to the vaccine, it's easier to see the way that they were speaking on it was repetitive. There's all those videos, safe and effective, all these. So it's a trickle down. As for some of the new stuff, when it comes to the weird, which is hilarious, that got pretty much shut down when Waltz called JD Vance.
So weird.
It's like, he's a weird guy. And again, that's the rules for radicals, by the way, because Waltz, and I have no problem with people being weird, but Waltz is a weird guy. Like, you can't say that he's not a weird guy. So if he directed it at JD first, and then the media, ran with it, but then you had the VP debate. And I think everybody saw that JD Vance is not weird. You can think of it, you could dislike his policies or whatever, but he definitely was not weird. But when it comes to the information currently, why they start to figure that out is it's keywords. The first one to say it, if it's on a major network, take away the pharmaceutical stuff we talked about, Testy, or trying to think some of the other ones.
Joy.
Yeah.
So it's a targeted campaign thing, and if it clicks with the voter, they're going to use it on the news. It's just the way that it works, and it's a trickle down on that board too. If it engages the viewer, and producers watch other television, so they'll see it on CNN and MSNBC. They'll go like, oh, that worked. Let's roll with it. You could I mean, they're paid to do that. So they know what words will affect the audience. That's what they're paid to do. And that's why it becomes almost like repetitive programming. And they also know, if they're trying to create a narrative, that if they say things in different ways, it's just like advertising. It takes 39. They say the average is 39 hits before you decide to go buy a product. It's the same thing. If I were to say, JD Vance is weird, and then I'm going to say JD Vance is just a different kind of candidate, and then I go elsewhere. JD Vance is a unique human. That's 3 different ways of saying the same thing. But then people have 3 different things in their brain. If they hear that targeted weird, it ingrains it in the brain, so that it's something that they continue to believe and hear, so that eventually that is something that they fully are invested in.
I don't know if it's the same, but when I was doing television broadcasts, that was actually my major. This is what I wanted to do with my life. We would get reports that would come in from the Associated Press, and there were certain topics that they would automatically plug in that every single news station got. So that could be why you're hearing the repetition, because there would be like worldly news, state news, federal news, local news, all kinds of stuff. And so as the reports came in from AP, you would just plug it into the teleprompter and you would say it. You know, they might change a few sentences, but you had a script already pre-written. Now, granted, this was like 20 years ago. I don't know how much
it's the same.
I'm sure it's the same too.
That's actually interesting to know. That's really
so if you're hearing the same lines over and over, it's probably because it was just a plug and play that they wanted all media networks to cover certain stories.
So does that mean that AP is the deep state that people talk about? They're the ones that, I mean, and I actually think it's probably the same now. I've worked in enough news areas, worked with news people, not in the actual space, but that's true. They essentially have a modern day ticker of information, and it is a plug and play system. So obviously it comes from the top down. So how far does the top go where the messaging gets there?
Mm-hmm. And how much do you want to change it? And is this a story that has to be covered across all media outlets? You know, the producers get to pick and say, we're going to cover this topic at this hour. And this, you know, and you start trying to find, like you guys said, the keywords. What's going to hit? What's the juiciest news? What's the most intoxicating thing that people are going to want to stop and watch? Because at the end of the day, it's really about views. That's how they get their money.
Right. And they know that when they're going to say they're invoking a Hitler-esque Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden, people are going to be invested, which is so hilarious. They make it, for that one specifically, they made it seem like he's the first president to consider ever duplicating the Nazi rally of 1939, when Clinton, Lyndon B. Johnson, I think Bush Sr., I've heard the rattled off. It was like 6 or 7 other presidents between now and then have done rallies at Madison Square Garden, but no, it's just Trump that became
so weird.
The Nazi. But they know that these things will trigger people, and I see it. You see it. It trickles down, just not from the news. It trickles to people's social media, like the crazy leftist Democrat going, "I knew he was invoking." I saw one that was saying like, "This is the same as when he did a riot." Did a whoops, Freudian slip. Did a rally in Tulsa, the same place as the Tulsa riots. Oh, so he's not allowed because there was the Tulsa riots in the 20s and 30s in Black Tulsa, in the Black Renaissance. He can't go back there ever again because he's invoking the spirits of these racist events. And it's like, I don't want to ever shame other people, except for when I do. And this is one of those moments. Like if you have dumbed yourself down to the inability to be able to discern this rhetoric from being ridiculous. And I'm like, do you really need to vote? Like,
it's true. Yeah. I want to actually get Steph's live reaction here, because she doesn't keep up with all of it. And she doesn't, I think, understand the Trump Nazi rally thing. So I'm going to play that real quick.
Okay.
Can you guys see this?
No.
Yeah.
Madison Square Garden comes days after his own former chief of staff went on record to describe his former boss as a fascist. But that jamboree happening right now, you see it there on your screen, in that place is particularly chilling because in 1939, more than 20,000 supporters of a different fascist leader, Adolf Hitler, packed the garden for a so-called pro-America rally. A rally where speakers voiced anti-Semitic rhetoric from a stage draped with Nazi banners. When a Jewish protester rushed the stage, the Associated Press reported, quote, instantly, a dozen or more stormtroopers set upon him, knocking him down and beating him as he held his head in his arms.
Posting this, and this is what he's talking about, Steph, where it's just crazy that
So
this
they're
is what they
comparing.
show.
They want to do a comparison because it's a stage of.
Anytime
dictators.
something happened in the past that Trump happens to go to the same place, the news grabs it and goes, look up negative stuff from that exact location.
Would it not be okay? So on the flip side of it, and I don't know if this has been proven or not, it's just rumors that I've heard, is that Kamala is paying people to show up to her rallies. Is that not some form of control? And like, would that not be some Nazi behavior? Like you're bullying and you're stealing people from their country and making them attend your rallies and paying them and punishing them and bribing them. And that to me feels more Nazi than people just voluntarily showing up.
Well, absolutely. So are they paying? I'll get to that in a second. But when it comes to like we talked about earlier, people afraid to speak out because of how they're demonized.
Yeah.
That's actually very, very like, I'm not going to say fascist. That's Nazi-esque. It is a Nazi belief. Like,
what does fascist mean? Should we talk about what what is a fascist?
Definition? Because so I always love when people are like, you don't even know the definition of
I'm gonna
fascism.
pull it up.
And I want to get it exactly correct.
I'll say it right now.
Okay, you got it?
Ready?
Yeah.
You have the
Fascism. A far-right authoritarian and ultra-nationalist political ideology and movement characterized by a dictator leader, most likely Donald Trump. I'm just kidding. Put that part in there. Centralized
I wouldn't be surprised that
autocracy.
Wikipedia would have that.
Forcible suppression of opposition. Oh, it sounds like using the DOJ to try to put someone in prison. Belief in a natural social hierarchy. Subordination of individual interests or of the perceived. Oh, and that's where it ends. So there you go. Forcing. Sounds like a little racism in there, a little control.
arrogant, anti-liberal, anti-working class. Is this true? Is this what fascism is?
Yeah, and that's why I think it's hard to throw around the term fascism for either side because it's pretty extreme. Is Trump a nationalist? I do believe so. They use the fact that he's admitted to being a nationalist, which just means you take pride in your country and you put your country first. And they've used that term to morph it into a white supremacy, fascist concept. It's tough.
A synonym is bullying, to bully. And I mean, look, he's not. He can be kind of a bully. Like I'll admit that he is like the best troll. But I love trolls. I mean, my friends and I troll each other all day long. Should a president be trolling people? I don't know. But he's not wrong in the things that he says. It's just maybe his approach can be offensive to people who might be more sensitive.
She's a loser.
Yeah, she's a nasty woman. I mean, look, I've called women nasty. I'm like, ooh, she's nasty because there are nasty women out there. Should a president be saying these things? I mean, I don't know if you heard him on Joe Rogan's podcast. We have lots to talk about and unpack.
He called Comey a stupid son of a bitch, and I almost spit out my my water.
I listened to it.
But why can't a president be human like that? That's what I want to know. Presidential.
That's a great question because they're trying to do that with Kamala. They're trying to do that with Kamala. They just had her at a bar randomly, like having a drink, and like at the end, I don't know if you saw it, but she's like, "Ha!" She did her cackle, and then she said, "Ah, shit!" Like they made it like very on purpose for her to say a swear word because it like relates. It's funny. We're being, and I said this in the beginning of the show. We're being so like, well, he should be saying that he should be presidential. He should. Now, JD Vance is very presidential, but
JD Vance is good.
Yeah, but even him, he'll swear and he'll do different things. Like he said the F-bomb a couple times on Theo Vaughn's podcast, which I will tell you was one of the funniest podcasts
I love that one.
I haven't heard it yet.
Good.
He's so I love Trump.
My favorite anymore. Can I say that?
Yeah, I'm stealing that one after the election. But I like Trump on Andrew Schultz probably the most. He was so
I thought that was
comfortable.
better than the Rogan one too, personally.
Yeah, that's
He
what
was
David said too.
He was comfortable, and he had a couple of like left-leaning guys on the couch that would say stuff, and he actually like, you're right. I probably could say it softer, and everyone's like, "Whoa, did he just admit wrongdoing?"
He does, but you want humanization. You want people. For me, I want to be able to look at the president and say, "Okay, you aren't this fascist, bully, Nazi, white supremacist. You have a conversation. Your policies resonate with me." And a lot of people will ask too, like, how can you be positive around Trump because you love nature and you love the environment and you love whales? And he started talking about whales on Joe Rogan. I was like, yeah, like people think of him as this person who doesn't care about the environment, doesn't care about the trees, doesn't care about, no, he does care, but he also cares about America first. And I really appreciate that. And I'm kind of nervous as to what's going to happen in the next election.
It's a pragmatic approach to climate change. And it's like, I've been an environmental guy for a long time. Obviously, the fact that he is bringing Bobby Kennedy Jr. into the fold, already admitting,
yes.
I don't know when you're airing this exactly, but a couple days ago, Bobby Kennedy admitted that that Trump has already self-funded with private funding a transition team that is usually done by lobbyists and usually done after the election. He's already gotten a transition team that includes Tulsi Gabbard, that includes Kennedy Jr., that's going to start making these shifts. There is an environmental change that needs to happen, but it can't start with the degradation of our economy. You have to find a way to do both. Electric cars are not the end all be all. I think it's hilarious that we talk trash about that he talks trash a little bit about electric cars, and Elon Musk is his main guy. Like,
right.
These are there is an element where there's a convenience. There's some things are better, some things are worse, but ultimately the thing that causes the most pollution is people being poor. I'm trying to think of the specific word. But when there is underdeveloped countries and nations, you have to rely on things that causes a mass amount of pollution. Climate change could be real. Here's the thing. Climate change is real. The question is it man-made or not? And you have to start looking at these things. But the one thing you can actually look at from a climate change perspective, like, yeah, we should still be recycling and doing all the things we can possibly do to make things better. And by the way, recycling is a corrupt organization too, across the board. They don't actually recycle it, whatever, rabbit hole. But fact is, we need to be doing whatever we can to make positive changes that are just common sense. But at the same time, all the predictions from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s with Al Gore, none of the drastic, crazy predictions have come true. None. And they'll look at a difficult hurricane season, and they'll pretend like this is proof positive. When in all reality, if you look at the strength of the storms, this year we did have a couple really strong ones. But if you look at the last decade compared to the 30s and 40s, the actual strength of storms has not gotten any worse. So it's like there's just an element of like they're not accepting the fact that they haven't been accurate at all, and yet we're pushing policy that is actually economically destroying us on a global scale, and it's frustrating. Like, it's just and Trump, obviously, by bringing Kennedy in, realizes the things that are important, like clean water, cleaner food. Like, these are things that are a big deal. I'm going on, but I was just in Ohio this last week, and I met up with the group Century H2O Water, which is a company that I've worked with a little bit. Nelson McElveen, who owns it, he got invested. They were giving out water filtration systems in East Palestine as a political derivative for Republicans out there to show their support of these people that still have crap water from the train derailment. Like, these are big issues that need to be addressed, and these people are being left behind to just have crap water and probably have turbo cancer in the next 2 to 3 years. It's
that's
and that's what he cares about.
Right.
So they don't have clean water, but at least they have cats and dogs to eat. That's what helps.
So that's they're eating the dogs and cats. God, I love that drop. There's like,
oh my God, it's so good.
I keep wanting my DJ for Fox to insert that in. And when we went to BYU soon after, they were playing the Arizona Wildcats, and somebody had a sign saying, "We're about to eat the cats."
Oh my gosh!
A bunch of Haitians.
He's the biggest influencer on the planet, I think.
100%. Now, with that said,
you didn't even watch Schultz. He said that on Andrew Schultz.
Did he? I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. With that said, though, the dogs and cats thing is interesting. And he recently responded to it on Univision, where he talked about the fact that, he was just repeating what was being reported at the time. And I was actually saying, okay, it's probably not in the scale. There's some really big problems in that community, huge problems in that community with car accidents, insurance. Like there's some real things. And somehow the dogs and cats ended up becoming the thing that made it all misinformation, which that always makes me like a little bit like, feel like somebody from the opposite side made sure to put that through because they knew it would be a distraction for the mass amount of issues with immigration in that area that were affecting people's benefits and and driving, all that insurance. But I was wrong. I did a one-on-one with a ultra leftist from Dallas. I went one-on-one and fact checked in real time because I said, here's the deal. There's one piece of evidence: the Haitian woman from Canton, Ohio, that was caught on body cam eating the cat, which is true. It happened. What's not true is she was Haitian, but she had been a legal immigrant in the United States of America her whole life. So even that, and I admitted, I go, I'm wrong. I was wrong then. This is just a crazy woman hopped up on drugs. It's eating a cat that has Haitian heritage. It's got nothing to do with, an immigrant. So at this point, you've got some photos of people holding geese. You've got rumors of people saying cats are disappearing. Is it possible? Great. Is this something we should talk about? Absolutely not. We should talk about the actual issues in that town in Ohio, period.
When we lived in Miami, we saw some Cubids outside in a parking lot with a net, and they were literally catching pigeons and taking them back to, I'm assuming, their restaurant. Now, this is an assumption, but they're literally like capturing birds and just.
Or maybe they were just their carrier pigeons and they were sending notes to each other.
I don't know. I mean, different cultures
are
different
weird.
Things.
Cultures are different.
Yeah, they are. And if if we're going to open up our borders, we need to accept everybody coming in and their cultures. Yeah. I was telling David and David's mom the other day, I was like, it would make so much sense if we didn't just do an open border. And I need to be educated on this because I haven't really talked to my liberal friends who support this, open border policy stuff. But wouldn't it make more sense to just say, hey, we're going to screen the people coming in and try to get the best of the best? Like, you got to apply and be like a scientist or like bring something of value to the country. What is it that you want to bring? And you can get free. We'll give you free. What's the word?
Education, healthcare?
Not immunization. What's the word I'm looking for?
Healthcare. What are you looking for?
Like you can become a citizen.
Oh, like a path
citizenship? We'll give you a path to citizenship if you actually have merit and a reason to come in.
Or something, yeah. But if you want to have a free, like, earn it. Earn your right to come in, instead of just opening it up to, is that a thing? Because I guess they're not really applying right now anyway.
So
they could use
what I'm going to say is you now sound like a racist, and I'll explain why. So the philosophy on why that doesn't fully work, really, you want hardworking people to come to the country that are not criminals, plain and simple. And Trump yesterday said that anybody that's he proposed, he goes, anybody that's an illegal immigrant that commits murder will get the death sentence, which is a big statement to say no matter what the state. So it's a federal issue. But when it comes to what you just said, when you're taking the best and brightest from other countries only, you are taking away their country's ability to actually grow and maybe heal if they're a war-torn or an impoverished nation. That was the word I was looking for earlier. It takes away if you're taking away only their best and brightest and leaving the rest, you might as well just burn their country down. So it's kind of a tough place to look at, but you just want decent citizens that want to come here and work and learn the language and and have pride in America. But we have a very broken immigration system that has got nothing to do with Trump. It's got nothing to do with Kamala at this point. Like the immigration system, I mean, the border, I think does with Kamala and Biden, but it's got nothing to do with, it's got to do with 30, 40 years of really bad immigration policy to not allowing there to be a path for citizenship. And then when Trump's working on things like that, you've got the next administration that's like, bring them all in, which therefore means then
what's the idea behind that?
Yeah, please get into that and why they end up in all the swing states.
But like, why is it just, and in my mind, this is what I'm thinking when they're talking about immigration. It's just open border, everybody come in. Is this the case? Or like, can you educate me on what's going on with immigration? Do you know enough about it?
I mean, for the most part, it is. We don't currently have a policy in place at the border that tells people that if they get stopped by, I mean, these numbers that we're getting with the millions of people that have come in the last several years, these are not people that are turned away. These are people that are documented of coming and then allowed into the country. Like, we actually stop them, but we can't deport them back. And that's a policy of Trump had the policy of, not catch and release. It was the other way, send them back home. Whereas we're allowing them in. And to David. And again, they kind of campaigned on that on the down low going into 2020. Like, we're going to have, people there was video, lots of it at the border, at a lot of these areas waiting for Biden to win. There was even t-shirts saying Biden 2020. And just knowing that if he won the election, the border the restrictions would be loosened drastically. Now, to David's comment, I can tell you, and I think it's more than just swing states, but I think Texas is going to be very close. And again, I might look like a complete idiot if it's 60-40 when the actual election happens next week. But a lot of Texans, a lot of the ultra-conservative Texans are disenfranchised by the voting, so they may not show up and they may think it's garbage. They think that we're already a red state, but we have we have millions of immigrants in this state. And you say, well, Anthony, immigrants can't vote. Illegal immigrants can't vote. Sorry. Well, anecdotally, I can tell you that I have a good friend. This is funny. This is an anomaly, though. I got a good friend that's got illegal family that is, funny enough, voting for Donald Trump, but which I find very odd and comical, that have fake Social Security numbers. And I'm not saying that all 20 million have fake numbers, but if let's think about how close it was in Arizona, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia. If it's 10,000 votes, and if you've got 500,000 illegal immigrants in one area, and 10%, 5% are able to get Social Security cards and their purpose to vote. And I also know some connections through CIA that where these people are being put strategically in places, and their one job, besides getting to work on a daily basis and send money back to their family, their one job is they know where they have to show up come November 5th. So
Really?
they've got
This is like
fake
proven. This is a proven
What?
thing. This is a proven.
It's not a proven thing. That's the problem. You can't
These are all
prove these things.
speculations.
Well, they're
It's
anecdotal.
not-
where
and
it's happening, but there's no like proven big statistics.
Right. And that's where people dismiss it as anecdotal. The key word is anecdotal. I have firsthand conversations, but these people, first off, are never going to come on camera. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, are you insane?
Yeah.
So it is a storytelling system. But at the same time, why else would they allow 20 million illegal immigrants into this place? Like, there has to be a bigger purpose, because again, it doesn't look good on their record. So I am concerned about the election based on that, based on the information that has been put out there, like when you're repeating the Nazi and the Hitler and all that stuff. So you combine just a little bit of that, it's concerning. But no, I mean, that's a great point, Stefani. It is not something that can be proven. It's strictly the conversations you have. So that's why it's not something that could be like confirmed. Jose is
that would
illegally
never
here.
happen.
Yeah.
That would never happen. They're not doing that, but they're not requiring IDs. What are your thoughts on not having an ID to
That's-
vote?
Yeah, the super racist thing. What do you think about that?
That's
How is it
the-
racist to ask for an ID, but you need the new ID to even board an airplane?
Well, so the ID. So most places still require ID, but there is obviously some precincts that do not. There's also been video evidence from Veritas that they're sent, like I think it was New York or something like that. They're letting these are videos, undercover videos, where they let people vote without an ID, and they just say that they've got this visa that should not allow them to vote in the general election, the federal election, and they're still letting it happen. So the actual people fighting against the ID is the most mind-boggling, obvious, I want to cheat thing there is. Like at a Kamala Harris rally, in many ways, they've had, I have to answer your question about being paid. But at a Kamala Harris rally, a lot of them that are in certain places, people have to show an ID going in, which is hilarious. Like, it's just, you have to show an ID. And they said it's because, poor people that probably will vote Democrat, which I think is also racist. Like, poor black people are going to vote Democrat. We need to make sure, and they don't have an ID. It's like,
They don't know how to get an ID. They don't even know how to use a computer.
most states actually, they don't know how to use a computer. That was another funny one. Another zinger by the Joe Biden administration.
Wasn't that the New York? Was it the New York governor, the new lady? Right? She's like,
Hochul.
these people don't even know how to use computers. I'm like,
Yeah.
that is the most ignorant statement to make.
She apologized the next day. She's like, that didn't come off right. And I was like, well, then there was Joe Biden.
My mom
ain't
doesn't
black.
even know how to use a computer. Come
Yeah,
on.
Joe Biden, you're not black if you don't vote for me. And
I know.
he said another one with computers as well. I can't remember before.
Yeah,
Hochul.
he had an old one. It was probably talking about corn pop. You know?
Yeah. Corn Bob didn't even know how to use a computer. He knew how
But to go
sling
back on
drugs, though.
what you're saying about the ID, I know California, you don't need one. I remember one of my first times even voting when we lived in California. I went into the voting place by a park, and I was kind of confused. And they're like, just go over there. And I voted. I like had the ballot. I voted. And I dropped it, and then I dropped it in the box. And I left. I was like, and I had that thought process as a young kid. I was like, I could keep going in circles and just voting over and over again right now. And then we voted the other day. Early voting in Florida. You walk in, they ask for your ID, they scan it, you sign, it's you, and you walk over. I'm like, that was so easy. I don't understand how it's racist. Because like you said, they say the right's racist for saying you need an ID, but meanwhile, they're being a little more racist by saying that the poor folks in that culture
it doesn't make any sense. And most states have a way of getting a free ID card. Like they even if like people are like 30, people might not be able to afford $30 every 5 years. And it's like, all right, I'm not going to put myself in that level of poverty's shoes, but there is a way to go around it and then get things free. And it's like, if you're not willing to go around it just because you have that's probably why you can't afford, like, I don't want to sound like an asshole. I've been poor parts of my life, but like, if you can't figure that out, maybe you shouldn't vote.
I had the exact same thought right there. Like, if you can't afford $30 every 5 years, you're probably not in the right mindset to be making decisions for the country.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, guys. I don't know. I think everybody as Americans should have the right to vote. But are we talking about Americans or illegals, or what are we talking about?
Everyone in America has the right to vote? That's the question I have.
Yes.
Everyone in America has the right to vote. Okay.
Yes.
That pedophilia.
That is part of being America.
Every time somebody's a rape or murderer and everything, you deserve to pick the president.
It's part of being an American. You have
if
the
you
right
haven't been
to
caught
vote.
yet.
You have the right to vote. It doesn't mean that I'm going to necessarily think that your ability to choose intelligently is going to be there, but you have the right. You have the right to vote. That's one of the great things.
Is it a human right or an American right?
It's an American right.
It's an American right. It's not a human right. It's an American right. And I agree with you, Stefani. But at the same time, if you're not able to take one step out of things, one step away out of things, then I just, like, if you can get a free one and you don't go and you go out of your way, that basic 20 minutes it would take to fill it out, then you've lost everybody. I have to drive to go vote. Like, you have to take steps. If you're not willing to do that, I don't think you have the right to vote.
Do you think they know they have? I didn't even know you could get a free ID. That's not, I mean,
most
maybe
states
it's just
now have it set up to get a free ID.
Yeah, maybe it's an educational thing, or, I don't know. I just think there's always a reason.
Steph, you notice what she's doing? Maybe it's an educational thing. She's slowly leaning that way, where she's like, they're not that smart. They can't.
I'm not saying they're not smart. I didn't say they're not smart.
Or use a computer.
Did you just say you people? I believe you said you people.
I'm a very intelligent person, and I didn't know you could get a free ID.
It's because you're white.
She's stupid.
Oh,
so
look at the privilege on you. You didn't even know about it. Wow. Wow.
The narrative can be flipped so quickly, can it?
Yeah.
I just think it's an American right to be able to vote. If you're in this country, it's part of what makes our country so wonderful.
Not if you're in this country, because you just made a case to get in the country and vote now.
That's what I'm saying. Do you have to be an American? Is it a part of America, or is it if you're in America?
I think the left's making it, if you're in America, you can vote.
Well,
right?
And then the right says American.
Look at what the Haitians in Ohio in Springfield. So they not eating the cats and dogs, but they are not illegals. That was the big thing JD Vance talked about. They're not.
Talk about that with that process where they brought them over.
Yeah, it's a temporary protected status.
When we say they,
the government put in a process. He's going to tell you right now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I don't know exactly. I mean, I think it was a federal initiative where Haitians, specifically because of what's going on in their country, were given temporary, not a visa, but a temporary protected status for employment purposes. And it just so happens they're all going to like kind of specific areas, and maybe that's not government based, because I mean, when a group of people find out that there's a decent amount of factory jobs in a certain place, they'll tell their family and they'll continue to go in the same place. And that makes common sense. That's just basic sense. But they can't be deemed illegals because right now they have a protected status by the federal government, which now this relates a little bit to the Project Veritas thing that happened, I believe, in New York or Pennsylvania last week when they showed this early voting. Technically, they're not supposed to vote on that. Now, if a poll worker is ultra leftist and they go, I want everybody to have a chance to vote, we'll let them, and this is what they did in the video, we'll let them sort it out. Just go ahead and vote. So if they come in to vote even though they're not supposed to be based on the temporary protected status, and they just vote and say, we'll sort it out later. It doesn't get sorted out later. Their vote will count. They don't have the time to go like, oh, wait, this is a Haitian immigrant. So there's some tomfoolery that can happen very easily when there is not this when the poll workers are not trained properly. And again, you can't police every precinct correctly. So there's always going to be fraudulent elections. Period.
Yeah.
There's no way to fix that perfectly unless you did it. I mean, I mean, we can break down a very clear way to do it, but even then it's pretty difficult. I want to go back. I did the Trump weave is what he calls it. It's called the weave.
The weave.
Back to the
Influencer.
Don't end up out in the forest.
right. Don't want to go that far. But going back to what you asked about people getting paid for Kamala rallies.
Mhm.
So there is evidence. Kamala. There is evidence in the very beginning of her, like kind of when they were building momentum, where people were getting posts to get paid to go to certain things. I think it was very temporary. I think the media did its trick. I think the hope, joy, all that stuff. I think her good performance in the debate, I think helped. And the fact that they bring in major celebrities like Beyonce, who didn't perform, but they bring in major like musical acts. Lizzo comes. It created its own momentum, but I think that was very short-lived where they were paying people to show up at certain things. But I know from being somebody that was in the industry of promotional models and brand ambassadors, there was paperwork going around of people, getting $20 an hour to go to these things.
Is there anything that you like about Kamala or that you don't like? Are there any policies that you think, wow, that's actually pretty solid?
Well, yeah, she's
A robot.
duplicated a lot of Trump's policies right now when she talks about no tax on tips, the child tax credit, which is these are things that Trump already instated when he was in office. She upped it by $1,000. She said that she'll continue to believe in fracking, which is this is the danger of Kamala Harris, is without having to primary, you get to say whatever you want and know that you never have to gain a liberal or leftist vote. So by circumventing the primary process, all of the stuff that she was stumping on in 2019 when she didn't garner a single percentage of the Democrat vote, which is why she had to drop out, she never has to bring that up, and she can essentially poise herself as a moderate. All of a sudden, by the way, because her whole career she tested further based on her policies in which she is signed on. She tested further left than Bernie Sanders. So it's dangerous. So yeah, do I like some of the policies she says? Yeah, she talks about fracking, talks about energy, talks about certain levels of healthcare that I believe in. She said she'll never take your guns, which I find interesting that she did 4.5 years ago. Private insurance. I mean, her policies don't sound, some of the things she's brought up in the last couple months don't sound bad, but they're essentially a duplication of Trump's, and she knows that they're popular on a moderate level.
I want to
Her
take
personality is terrible to me, though.
Yeah.
Cannot see
bad.
her.
And Tulsi Gabbard, love her. Like, I mean, from we were talking about this too a couple days ago, and I know you have a question, so I'll let you get back to it. But I love strong females. If I'm gonna have a woman president, I want a strong female. I want someone who's like a badass who can step in a room full of men and be like, I got this. I'm educated on what's going on. I can communicate properly. Like, I have certain criteria of a president, whether you're a male or female. I would love nothing more to have a female president. It would just be, to me, it would be such a huge historical moment. But it has to be the right person, whether you're a male or a female. And I'm sorry, but there's something about Kamala I just don't trust. I don't trust her. And from a woman, it's like, I would love nothing more than a woman president. Like, why not? That would be huge. But I'm not going to vote for a woman just because she's a woman, because she's also running the country. And
Hillary was terrible. Yeah, I mean,
Hillary was terrible too.
Strong females are incredibly important because if they're strong enough, especially in the forearm, you don't need to buy a dishwasher. It's fantastic. So I'm totally kidding. Totally kidding. Single parent mom. I also do all the dishes in my house. I have to clarify. Not all.
Childless cat ladies.
Cat ladies. But no, I agree with you. First off, I've liked Tulsi Gabbard because I have a lot of liberal beliefs. I've liked Tulsi Gabbard when she was still a Democrat. She switched.
Me too.
Same.
Republican. I've always liked Tulsi. I always said, especially. So what people don't understand, she was the one that ended Kamala Harris's run in the first debate. The reason why she was not in any of the other debates is campaigns have rules. The campaign rules are not campaigns, party rules. In order to get into the next debate, you have to have a certain amount of unique unique visits to your site, unique donors, I think is the main one, unique donors, and you have to be polling in 3 separate polls at a certain percentage based on where you are. So Tulsi Gabbard was the most searched Democrat after the first Democrat debate in 2019. And I remember watching it going like, she's good. And Google, who she had to sue, the lawsuit got thrown out. But because of the massive amount of traffic to a relatively unknown website, they shut her down for 3 hours.
Jeez.
They couldn't afford to have her going, and they somehow got out of the lawsuit. I'm sure they had ways of getting out of it based on the rules and regulations of Google. But they shut down her campaign. They single-handedly shut it down because that was when she would have had the momentum to continue to go further, and they couldn't afford to have somebody that had a centrist viewpoint like her, and that plain and simple. So Tulsi Gabbard's phenomenal. Hillary Clinton, like you talk about Trump, like the persona, people are like, Trump's terrible. Trump, if you ask people that have worked for him, minus the ones that maybe have, bad business dealings where they talk about, but you talk about the janitors, you talk about the people that work in the food service, he knows all of them. He treats them all incredibly well. If he meets new people, like if you know people that have met him in person, he's a phenomenal individual in person. Everybody that worked in the White House kitchen staff that spoke off the record because they don't want to get Clinton or Hillary or whatever you want to call it. You weren't allowed to make eye contact with her during Clinton's administration. Like these are what people spoke out. Like she is a vile human being. She's mean. Kamala, I don't think is that level. I just think she's a willful idiot. Whereas I think Tulsi Gabbard, I know a lot of people that are on my side that were like, a woman could never be president. A woman could never be president. I think it's difficult for me to say that in this sense, a leader could be a woman over a male unless they are that good. And I think that Tulsi is that good. If there's going to be a first woman president, it would be Tulsi.
I agree. She's level-headed. She has good policy. She served in the military. I mean, she has a really well-rounded idea of what's going on. And I love the way she communicates. I think she's a ball buster. I like her.
She's still
and a masculine energy.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe that's what I'm attracted to. Like I love a female who can just be a boss. And I think she's got that. She's done a great job of showing up very beautiful as a female, but also can go to bat with the masculine energy. I like her.
Careful. She might be dipping her pen in company ink, if you know what I mean.
I mean,
I have a question. In 4 years,
Tulsi's eating the cats. Sorry, go ahead.
That's the soundbite right there.
Cats. 4 years from now, Trump's president. He's out. Is it Vance, Tulsi? Is it RFK? Is it Vivek? Who are the top two out of the big new group that you like?
I don't think RFK will be it. I think he'll just be I think he's going to stay an independent, and I think he's a dangerous weapon when it comes to. I mean, it's really going to depend what he is able to accomplish, and also if Trump gives him the leeway that we hope that I think many people hope that he does in terms of health.
Same.
He said on Joe's thing where he's like, I'll have to keep him out of the environmental stuff sometimes because if I want no regulations, he's going to come in and try to stamp stuff down,
Yeah. So
he'll play a better role in that role than he would have in a presidential role. I think.
Right, especially, and I hate to say it, his voice, it creates issues. On a media global whatever level. I would have considered voting for RFK.
You're voicist, aren't you?
I'm a voicist. I am a voicist.
Yeah.
But I think the Republican bench is very deep. The problem is, I don't know how things will go the next 4 years, and I'll explain that in a second. But the bench is deep. J.D. Vance, I think, is obviously the heir apparent. DeSantis is part of a slightly different faction of the Republican Party, but I think he's incredibly strong still. And possibly what the country might need after a Trump presidency. But I mean, I think Vance has shown that he is the heir apparent. Vivek is great. Him and Vivek are friends. I don't know how they would balance a ticket together. Are they too young together? Whatever. Right. Tulsi. So you've got Tulsi, Vance, Vivek, and
Grant Cardone.
DeSantis. All really high quality. You don't like DeSantis?
Oh, I like DeSantis, but I'm saying Grant Cardone.
I'm saying no to her. She said Grant Cardone.
He's trying to weasel. I think he's trying to kind of put himself in those political positions.
He likes the popularity. He's not that guy.
He's a clickbait guy. I mean, I love Cardone, but I think that he is. Yeah, he knows he doesn't have the edge. Like he's brilliant at real estate, but he's still he would make Trump look smart on certain interviews. Like he doesn't use the right vocabulary.
Yeah.
And stuff. No.
Yeah. Understood.
But maybe he's looking for a cabinet position in housing. I mean, he could be somebody. But I think those are the ones to look out for. I also think Byron Donalds is incredibly strong. But here's the problem: the left has no bench at all. Zero bench right now. There's no strong Democrat candidates at all. The problem is, which they're going to see this as a huge issue, because going forward, we're going to have a mostly Republican. If things go as planned, you'd have mostly a Republican future. And that scares the crap out of them, because that completely defeats the purpose of what they're trying to do. These next 4 years, if for Trump supporters that are going to be so excited if he wins on November 6th, this is not going to save our country. It's actually going to make things worse. As much as I'm voting for Donald Trump, and I think it's important, I think the long-term gain is with the Donald Trump presidency. The short-term gain, if you want easy peasy, lemon squeezy, everything happy, and just is slowly but surely getting your freedoms taken away, it would be a Kamala Harris presidency. The media.
Why do you say that?
The media has a job to do, especially like we talked about with pharma before. Trump bringing RFK on, holy shnikes. You are going to, the pharmaceutical industry, the insurance industry, the lobbies are going to lose their minds. So there is going to be one initiative, which is make Trump out to be a horrible human being throughout the presidency. That will affect, I mean, I've said that it will be America will be rubble for the next calendar year.
They're getting their golden goose back.
What's that?
They're getting their golden goose back for the media, though. The media should want him as much as they hate him.
They're going to love the ratings, but that doesn't mean they have to portray him in a good place.
That's what I mean.
And they're funding. Yeah, it's going to be 24/7 coverage, and every narrative is going to be wrong. When Trump says something wrong, it's going to be bad. Any policy is going to be bad, depending on if it becomes a split Congress. There's so many things that could go wrong in the next calendar year, and it's one of those ones. It may be painful, but I have to tell people it will be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to lose my freedoms. Like, yeah, Kamala, we may not have riots, we may not have whatever, but all of a sudden in 4 years, we may not actually be able to vote at all fairly. We may not be able to I mean, I've already been censored. I'm sure that you've seen people that have dealt with censorship issues. Like, it's picking and choosing which DEI group that you can't speak about anymore. And we're going to be facing that. And if there is another COVID, imagine another COVID under a different president than Donald Trump. Not that he was great during COVID, but it was newer. Think about all the mandates and the restrictions and the inability to have free speech, the inability to find other, there's no other way except for the fact that it'll seem smooth on paper because the media will be like, yay us. But meanwhile, the freedoms will be torn down. So
I wanted to know too, because I've had this thought during all this political campaign stuff of these commercials that come on, and this is approved by Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. And I watch these commercials and I'm like, it's insane to me how they can outright lie. Donald Trump is going to take away your freedoms. The Constitution will be completely gone. You will never have another election.
World War III.
The army will come after you in your home. Random stuff. I'm like, those are blatant lies. It's wild you could just say that. And I'm pretty sure I saw on Facebook you posted a video about this exact topic where you cover how that's allowed and what's going on.
I don't remember. I can't remember what the exact commercial I saw, but I was in a hotel room and I'm like,
it's probably the same one.
What the? Like, how can they get away with saying this? It's unchecked. And look, all election videos are mudslinging. Like, that's how it's been for decades now. I get it. Like, Kamala is the border czar. She's terrible. I mean, you could use a better word than border czar. She was in charge of the border. She was in charge of immigration, and it's failed. Like, these are. What's that? So
they did call her literally the border czar, and Biden's words were border czar. And then they said about for a year straight. And then when border went to crap, they go, she's never been the border czar.
Yeah. No, I mean, but even but fact is, that's like, there's still some partial truth to it, if not more than partial truth.
Yeah.
So, and the right will be like, she's bad for the economy. You could say Trump's bad for the economy. That's fair. But when you use specifics, and I'm drawing a blank exactly what the commercial was, because I remember watching it and being like, you're effing with me right now.
I went on YouTube and I couldn't find the exact videos. Like, I was literally looking up the Harris campaign, Trump stuff, because I remember watching blatant lies and I was so confused. I'm like, how can you legally say stuff like this?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the problem. Like, again, mudslinging is one thing. Saying somebody is bad for, that's another thing. But then to actually, like, it might have been a Hitler reference. I think it might have been, or it was proven Project 2025 stuff and all these different things, and none of which is. It's just none of which is, if it's completely improvable. Like, there's economists that'll come out and say Kamala is better than Trump. There's economists that'll come out and say Trump is better than Kamala. Like, that's, you can say, you can use these things in an election cycle, but to do the ones that are like, even the furthest left of fact check sources can't prove it. Like, I don't know how we don't have regulations on this. And then for me asking for regulations, so say Trump asking for regulations, goes against the whole concept of free speech.
Right.
But there has to be, that's the whole purpose of a federal government. There has to be some kind of regulation, like, but then how far does the free speech go? Like, well, technically we believe he's Hitler. Like, I find it crazy. So it's tough.
It's an interesting hypocritical situation. You know, it's that Spider-Man meme where everyone's pointing fingers, and there's extremes on both sides.
Yeah.
So it's very challenging. It's a sticky situation, and all the policies are sticky situations. And I just hope whatever happens for our country in the next few days, that it's going to be, that people can just get along. Because I feel like it's going to be utter chaos no matter how it goes. It's going to be chaos.
Mm-hmm. Well,
go ahead.
I was saying, you were talking about Hitler and how they could say this stuff. Some of that has drawn negativity to Trump. I don't know if you noticed this. And since we spoke last, there's been a couple attempts at his life.
Yeah.
I want you on your personal opinion. Easy.
He wants you.
Easy. Yes, I want you on your personal opinion. Easy question, you know.
She's got Tulsi. We've got each other.
That's right. Simple question.
I won.
Trump first assassination attempt clipped in the ear. Negligence or government conspiracy?
So, fun fact. I went to the second Butler rally. I was there at the site, and I was in Pennsylvania, and I'm like, and I had the opportunity. I was like, I'm going to drive 3 hours after leaving this event, and I'm going to get there. And it was great. I've been to a couple Trump rallies. Maybe this is like my third or fourth, I guess. But I wanted to go on a couple different levels. I wanted to see Elon for the first time. He was his first time out with Trump. I also wanted to get a lay of the land and see how close the building was and how close it all was. I would have suspected going in, if you would have asked me beforehand, I would say most likely an inside job by the government. I was already leaning that way. Going there, seeing how close that roof was, we had Secret Service directly behind us, and I know they were understaffed clearly on that first assassination attempt. But just watching the way Secret Service, even two of them that were stationed in our area, the way that they pan and then they use, binoculars and whatever, and then seeing how close that roof was, it was close enough, David, that if I were to just look if I was standing right behind Trump on the stage, I could look. I wouldn't be able to make out exactly what kind of gun he was holding, but I could have made out clothing, could have made out long gun, and could have easily told that guy was not a Secret Service member on the roof. You've got people that are scanning constantly, even if they weren't like in that sector, like just seeing it. And the fact that there was a report about this guy 30 minutes beforehand, the fact that he was cremated like 9 days after he was killed, there's no investigation, so many different things. I think the woman, the head of the Secret Service that got her time on Capitol Hill and then quit afterwards to make sure that she was the one that was the plausible idiot in it. There is no doubt in my mind that this was an inside job to kill Trump. There's no way that it wasn't. There is no way that negligence would be like a bunch of people trained to see something didn't just turn and go, that looks weird. Yeah. Like it's too much. Even the water tower, by the way, the water tower was so close. Like it looks like it's so far away in images. And that's why when I see those like shadowy figures on the water tower, I'm like, now that I saw it in person, I don't think anybody was on the water tower. There should have been Secret Service on the water tower, but there was nobody on the water tower. I think it was just
argument, like you said, they were understaffed. It's like, yeah, but that is where the conspiracy can start. Why did they not send Secret Service members to that rally? And was there any apparent truth to Jill Biden had something going on in Pennsylvania the same day, and they sent more protection to her than even Trump?
I don't know about that, but yeah, I know that she had some. I mean, even if it's equal, it doesn't matter. Like there was the understaffing when Iran was already potentially threatening his life.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the understaffing, like at that window. There's the fact that somebody was called out and like told to like take a break right when Trump is going on. Like it was a hit. Like let's be very clear. It was. You know, you can call me a conspiracy theorist, you can call me whatever you want, but going to that location and seeing it and seeing the layout and then knowing obviously a little bit of the story that we all know, there's no way you can convince me that it was negligence or stupidity, because that would have been the biggest. That would be like, let me see if I can think of a good analogy. That would be like, I was just watching a chess video, a grandmaster in chess going up against I'll even give it a little leeway, the best player in somebody's elementary school and losing. Like not somebody that didn't know how the game worked, but somebody that there is 0 out of 50,000 times would this kid ever win. That would be the level of idiocy that it would be, and I just can't believe that.
So, like you said, that was part of the conspiracy, but it led after that where no one talks about the fact that, as you said, the coroner of the Butler County tried to go examine the body and it was already cremated beforehand. The house wasn't it perfectly clean? There was like no silverware or anything in the house. There was a lot of weird things that added up, right?
Yeah. And yeah, you named really the two that we know about, but this was an attempt on a ex-president's life. And they definitely did not go, like, they still kept, you would think they'd put their foot on the gas pedal to figure things out, unless they didn't want to figure things out.
Right. That's what I think too. Yeah.
And there's belief systems that like this, like, how did he make this shot with the steel sights? But then they find out that the gun was hit before Secret Service shot the guy. So there might've been the scope shot off. I mean, there's a whole bunch of random things, but fact is,
a long enough barrel.
The level of investigation for something this major was pretty light.
Yeah. Iron sights at a long barrel, you can still be ridiculously accurate.
So I've had 2 people where we've had a debate about this, and they say iron sights at that distance is very difficult. And then I've heard you and somebody else say it's not.
I have a 9mm rifle with like an 18-inch barrel, and I am more accurate than my red dot.
Really? Yeah. See, I've always heard it that way, but I heard somebody that's really good with guns say that it's very difficult, and I'm like, and then you have Trump going, I hear that anybody could make that shot. It's easy.
A 10-year-old.
I don't know much. You know that Trump doesn't know garbage about guns. Like when he talks about guns, he sounds like a gun moron, which is hilarious, which is fine with me. It's not like he's lying about it like Waltz, who can't even load a shotgun, not even sure load a $3,000 shotgun.
Yeah, but at least he
odd. But
do we think
he was in China though, so that's what matters.
Do we think there's going to be a lot of attempts at assassinating Trump if he becomes president? A lot more?
I mean, maybe. We still have a couple days before the election, which scares me because I think it would throw things into disarray. I think at this point it's kind of too late because everybody can see that JD Vance can handle the job. Right. So I think that was if they were going to do it, it was going to be before the debate crush of JD Vance. Like right now, the only thing that they would get out of killing Donald Trump is just mass disruption in this country.
What about after? Like if he becomes president, he's elected.
Exact same thing. Chaos. All it does is create chaos. And I mean, it helps them. It helps them because chaos allows rule. But
martial law.
Yeah, extra laws. I think JD Vance is up to the task if it happens. But again, you're thrown into a place that you don't want to be thrown into. So who knows who does what at that point?
I also have another question. From the most popular president in the entire country's history, Joe Biden, who do you think he's voting for?
He's still voting for Kamala.
You sure about that?
No, I'm not sure.
For his ID.
I'm not sure.
They're going to check his ID. Do you think that he personally likes Kamala, or do you feel like he was undermined and he's a little bitter about this situation?
I think Joe Biden's I think he's a huge racist, to be totally honest.
Well,
So,
that's what Harris said in 2019.
This is what Harris said. This is a guy that had audio talking about Obama going, he's an articulate, a surprisingly articulate black man or whatever it was. I think he will still vote for her. I think they've developed a relationship. I think it also depends on the day. Like, there's days that I think it's very obvious that he's like, screw this, I should still be president. I should still be running for president. And then there's other days where, I think he does have
early onset dementia.
Like, yeah, I think that's there. So I think some days he's probably just like, oh, I love Kamala. This is my girl. This is this. And then there's other days it's like where he's sharp, where he's like, this is bullshit.
Because some of their argument is like, she's been VP, none of it's her fault. And then he'll go on TV while she's on a rally or on The View at the exact same time doing press briefings, being like, she made every decision with me. She was right there. She has just as much control as I did the last 4 years. Yeah. And he'll say that stuff. Meanwhile, everyone trying to back her saying the opposite. It's just, to that is funny to me how that somehow is working out between this.
I know.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that. I would love to know the dynamic behind closed doors.
Is this the most important election of our lifetime?
Yeah, and I think the last one was kind of too, because I think we've seen the country deteriorate. And I don't think that, people say like, that's a ridiculous thing to say. And you're just being a fearmonger. I think as time goes on, we live in a hyper accelerated world of advancements in this country. Like, things are changing at such a rapid rate. You got Elon creating robots, and you've got AI, and you look at the last 25 years, and it's like computer technology goes up, the internet, and then cell phones, and all these different things. So policy matters on a very root level in this country. So I think that every election is the most important election than it was of the generation, because of the hyper accelerated nature that we are in this country. Like, the decisions that are going to be made in the next 4 years are incredibly important. The decisions in 2016, we all said was incredibly important because they're going to determine the Supreme Court justices, and they did. It was supposed to be 1 or 2 and ended up being 3. Like, that's a big deal. So that was very consequential. And then leading into this one, we're seeing a real break in division. So 2020 was the most important election in this country. And as we're seeing, and during this presidency, there's the onset of AI, and now it's going to get even bigger. So, to say that it's the biggest, yeah. Could 2028 be bigger? Absolutely. As of right now, I think that this is this. You have to look at it like this, and it's not a fear mongering at all. It's just common sense.
Why do both sides think that the opposite party is going to create World War III?
I think the Democrats know that Trump will not create World War III unless they force the hand, because I think they want World War III.
Why do you say that?
World War III, they're insulated, and their coffers get very, very deep with the military-industrial complex. I think the parties have shifted. The Republican Party was the party of the military-industrial complex. They were the party of war. They were the party that financially benefited the most from, not just financially, but from a control basis. They were in control when we were at war. I think Desert Storm can be looked at as a gray area. You could look at the killing of Saddam Hussein, and like a lot of it, weapons of mass destruction. It was all a directive by the Republican Party. Do I think the Republican Party is innocent now? Not at all. I think it's more of an establishment against progressive politicians. I hate AOC on a lot of different political levels. I think she's also willfully dumb, but I think she is somebody that genuinely doesn't want war. I think that there are some elements like Bernie Sanders, overly empathetic maybe in some ways, doesn't want war. So I think that from a status of establishment, and that now includes the Democrat Party more than most, they want the war because they know they can destabilize the way that they interact with the American person. So they're using the fear of Trump, who had a very peaceful 4 years. They're using the fear to try to make sure, because people are afraid of World War III. They know that's a hot topic, right? So they're going to use that fear in order to try to make it where he can't get in and say that he is the risk, even though I think they know that. There's always going to be a risk, but I think he is the lesser of risks when it comes to foreign wars, because people know that he's a little bit cuckoo, a little bit crazy on certain things. You don't want him on the red button. And you also know that he negotiates war the same way he negotiates business, which is shrewd. Whereas Kamala, their proof is the fact that she has no foreign policy experience. She can't even manage the border. what happened in Afghanistan, you can't brag about because God knows that was a complete cluster. They try to pin it on Trump because it was his idea, but ultimately their foreign policy is of dangerous consequence, and they're not tough. So I think that we know the direction of where war could happen because a destabilized United States of America leads to weakness on the global level.
But at least they have Dick Cheney backing Kamala Harris now.
Can we talk about Eminem? So Eminem, by doing
Obama's palms are sweaty.
Yeah, exactly. So
palms are sweaty, knees weak.
Do you know the irony, knowing how against Dick Cheney and Bush Eminem was back when he's like, we're going to storm through the marsh. And again, Eminem's incredibly talented, but how ironic it is. This is a guy that now is speaking on the same team as Dick Cheney, who he spoke most against. This is also a guy that made a career off of free speech by talking about essays and by talking about terrible things to women and all these different things.
A lot of anti-LGBTQ stuff.
All the different things that made his career in free speech are being taken away. And he's now also promoting the side that has the team of the warmongers and the military-industrial complex, which was his one thing that he was big time against in the early 2000s.
It's great. It's fantastic. I just think it's hilarious that they use, like, even Dick Cheney supports Kamala Harris. It's like, yeah, but everyone on the right didn't even like Dick Cheney. Are you not getting this at all?
That is the shift in parties that's happening. That is the very evident shift. And, you know, there's been shifts in party all through. I mean, obviously the Democrats started the KKK. You can't use that as it's Democrats. They've shifted so many, like multiple times since then. But I think we're at a very important shift. And like Kennedy and Tulsi say, they didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left them.
Yeah,
so
they're right.
There's three factions right now. There's Democrats, Republicans, and the MAGA party. And the MAGA party is the non-establishment party because there's still a lot of establishment Republicans that are right now just on the side of Trump because they know that helps them get elected.
Yeah.
But they'd prefer to do things the old way. And then you have the Democrats. Let's say it again.
Rhinos, as they call them.
Rhinos. Yeah, rhinos. But I think that it's even more than that. Like rhinos is a tough term. I think it's like because I think they are Republicans. Let's say it again.
Dan Crenshaw, I think, is hard on rhino. There's a bunch of rhinos like that to me.
Dan Crenshaw, it's always weird because every so often he says some really good stuff, but then I know he's demonized by people on my side as well. And it's like, I don't know.
I'll listen to him talk, and I'll sometimes just like, you just sound like a douchebag sometimes.
Agreed.
Then I'll like what he says on a few points, but I'm not going to pick and choose, all the time.
So would we say the MAGA party is like the new, really strong Republican? The Republican Party is more libertarian, and the Democrats are...
Are you trying to see where it all swung?
Yeah, like where
did everyone swing?
Where is everybody
MAGA party is more libertarian.
Really?
Yeah, because they're for deregulation, like Trump talking about no income tax, like even breaching it, like that's a very libertarian concept. It's like less invasion, less regulation. So that's closer to being the libertarian side. But I think it's three full different parties. The problem with, people say we need to get out of a two-party system. Then we have to change a lot around.
Yeah,
in terms of how the electoral college works. From a federal level, is it possible? Yeah. Is it probable? No. Yeah. So my belief system is that the Republican Party will become, it'll still be called the Republican Party, but it will shift to the MAGA side, and you'll see a mass exodus of some of the establishment Republicans going to the Democrat side. But that's not a bad thing. The media will present it as a bad thing. But if they're going to start teaming up, there's going to be a lot of closed door meetings if Trump wins and about how they're going to be shifting things around in the future in my belief system.
Yeah, it'll be a lot more establishment is probably going to go to that Democratic side, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I'm curious. I'm curious as to what the world's going to look like on November 7th.
For your children?
That too. I just have no idea. I have no idea where it's going. And that's okay.Maybe we're not supposed to. Maybe it's part of our whole adventure.
Right.
So this is what I was going to bring up earlier. And you brought me back. Thank you. Because I was like, what was I about to say to David earlier? So I remember now. You got me. Yeah. So I was with a bunch of, do you know have you ever heard of Amanda Grace?
I don't think so.
Heard of Amazing Grace.
It's like Ark of Grace Studios. They're part of like the whole Clay Clark experience. They go to a lot of his, so they have a national night of prayer. They just had probably a national night of prayer. It's Tuesday night, a week before the election. Ultra Christian group. They're going to have Eric Trump and Laura Trump. And like, they have a whole bunch of big time speakers. Flynn is on it. So they know that group really well. We were having a conversation. That was where I was at after the water thing with Nelson and Century H2O. And we're out there, and somebody brought up, interestingly, like, you don't get a more Trump group. And they're like, but if Kamala wins, there's a reason behind it.
Mm-hmm.
If she ends up winning the election, whether we agree that it could be stolen or unfair, that God still has a plan behind all of it. And that was a reminder for me, because in my head at this point, with, you know, being so close to the election, I'm like, if we don't win, it's over. If we don't win, it's the end of the world. If we don't win, I'm never going to be able to speak again. All these different things. And then I heard these people that are bigger Trumpers than I am, because trust me, I do think Trump has a lot of flaws. But I heard these people that were just gung-ho and talking about the greater purpose from God's perspective. And if that's what God laid out for it, whether you know, whatever you look at it as, there is a plan to it, a plan specifically in our lives, plan for the country, plan for Christians across the board. So I that was a very interesting moment for me to hear somebody say that, and for me to remember that whatever happens on Wednesday, November 6th, that there is a bigger plan that I could possibly think of.
Mm-hmm. Because no matter how much information we have, or so much education we get, or how much control we think we have none of it.
Right.
None of it exists. We are really out of control.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where it becomes
the puppet
fun.
master knows a lot more than we do.
Yeah, I do believe that. What'd you say?
Let's end on this.
Okay.
Any October surprises coming our way to really throw this thing up in the next 2 weeks or week?
I think less than a week. I think the big October surprise for the Democrats were to get, and I don't think it's working very well, except for the people that are already voting that way. But I think that the Kelly and other people speaking out on Trump being a Nazi and wanting to run like a dictator and a fascist, and then utilizing that with the Madison Square Garden speech and parlaying the constant narrative, even though they said they had to tone down the rhetoric a month ago because he, you know, had 2 assassination attempts. Their October surprise was getting those people quasi on record, which is still not even fully on record, but a bunch of people speaking out that were generals that worked under Donald Trump, saying that he was a Nazi fascist dictator that praised Hitler. I think that's the best that they have. It's almost too late for, it's ridiculous. It's almost too late for an October surprise that'll really do some massive damage. I think I think I even said once several months ago, an October surprise would be Trump going on Joe Rogan. And I think that'll do well for him. But I think I'm looking at I think we're kind of out of time for a major October surprise.
So do you believe in polls?
No, not at all.
I don't. I'll say I don't even know anyone that's done a poll, and I've never done a poll.
I did one in 2016. I think I answered the phone. It took like 20, 30 minutes. And I'm like, I was pot committed. I'm like, I'll never do this again. I was at a Target. I remember I was on the phone at a Target. Like, these are a lot of questions.
And did you say I'm with her? Herstory in the making.
Herstory in the making. No, I think at the time I was still a Kasich fan. So, anyways. I think polls are easily manipulated. I think the biggest gauge is, I mean, we live in the social media world. You look at pages like Ellen DeGeneres and all these lefties and even
World
Taylor
Star
Swift.
Hip Hop, all the comments is insane.
It's insanely right.
Trump.
Exactly. And the left. And do I think that maybe some of them could be Trump bots? Maybe, I don't know, but they're very human comments instead of like the other side, like fire and flames when you see like a pro Kamala post. I don't know. I don't believe in polls. What I do believe in is Vegas odds. I do believe in Vegas odds.
Is that the poly market one where everyone's betting?
Yeah, and I do believe Trump's still considerably in the lead.
I think he's 57% on that. That's like the biggest one. Is the biggest poll is what the ones that are actually having money on them, which is kind of believable.
Right, and people, because people know, like people like money talks. So they're not, when they're getting these figures and like where things are now, does that mean that he's going to win? And I think that people have this issue. They're like 57-43. He's way in the lead. If it's a football game and it's 57-43, anybody can win. That's like almost like a toss up. That's still pretty close.
Especially if this game's that high scoring.
Right, exactly. So really, like, oh, Kamala had 94 million show up. Really?
Yeah.
Did she?
Overnight too. That was weird.
Overnight. Yeah, they rose from the dead. They voted for Jimmy Carter. perfect example. Dead, currently dead, definitely dead, still
If
voting.
he can vote, so can you, someone
Yeah,
said.
exactly.
And he was literally like,
should he? Like,
should he
how did he
vote?
get to the poll?
Guys.
And they're
Anyways.
just, they took,
Yeah.
that is so messed. I don't understand how they think that's okay.
Yeah, that's no. But no, I just think that I don't believe in polls. I think the Vegas odds show that they're doing research in these communities that are swing states, and they're seeing the percentages, and they're doing a lot of research on based on polling and based on real vote where it lies. I think that if it was the Vegas odds would be I think it would be 80-20 for Trump if they also didn't understand that our election system is very, very flawed.
So we'll know going forward that Anthony likes Vegas polls and the girls that come on them. Gotcha.
Okay. One last question, and then I have to. We'll have to sign off because I do have to pee because I'm pregnant, and that just happens.
You don't have a bed?
Think?
Sorry.
Do you do you think going back to the voter ID, when they take your ID and they attach your ID to your voter registration, and you're voting, is there a fear that if the liberals win, the Republicans will be punished for voting for Trump because they're, what do they call them? They're terrorists.
Yeah, domestic
You're on the watch list now?
Yeah.
Well, you register either way.
I don't register for a party. I go based on person, not party.
I think I'm a registered Republican. I don't know. I mean, for your viewers that are watching, I was a Democrat my whole life.
Me too.
Like up until 20 like 13, 14. I mean, but to answer your question, I do not think that that's an issue. I also
retaliation.
And I'm very careful of, I think I made the mistake once on this show. I don't try to use the word liberal. I'm liberal.
Mm-hmm.
These Democrats and leftists are not liberal. That's the whole definition of liberal is freedom of speech. Like that's the core.
Steph gets stuck in the little words.
Nuance.
Honestly, though, like the nuance, because she doesn't, as she just said, how do you know this stuff?
No
like
idea.
if I send it to you, get mad at me for sending you something political.
Yeah.
It's just not my fight.
I can't help you.
I love
I can't help
I
you.
love talking to you though. I was telling my girlfriends, I said I love having Anthony on because we have conversations and I like being educated. I like learning. But
and I'm constantly learning too. Like, I don't know, like I have to, like you have to figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
But yeah, the liberal thing is like my own co-hosts. I yell at them like all the time. I'm like, let's stop using the word liberal because you're giving them you're literally giving them I think a liberal ideology is a compliment because it believes freedom. It's just, it's inaccurate in this time.
So I should say more Democratic Party.
No, you're supposed to say snowflake instead.
I'm not going to name call. I won't name call. I just think you lose your audience when you name call. When people are like, oh, you snowflake, you libtard, you
Libtard, that's a good one.
you know,
Libtard,
you
I
fascist,
hate
you
that word.
racist. I'm like, you lost me. I don't want to talk to you. I'm not going to talk to you. You're not going to get you're not getting my energy because
Those
I
are the
already know
people
you're
in my
coming in
echo
emotional.
chamber drive me nuts.
Me too.
Right.
Me too.
I
Fuck
get
Joe
it.
Biden. Okay, sure. Yeah, it's funny, but do we like?
But say, let's go, Brandon.
Yeah.
That's why you say, let's go, Brandon. There has never been a better moment in history to be able to now you can have kids
NASCAR.
that can say the F word without having to say the F word.
It's so good. Okay, so
when I was leaving, hold on, when I was leaving the
retaliation.
Butler rally, really quick, when I was leaving the Butler rally, there was like a 9-year-old kid that was like and I'm like walking up because I'm getting ready to get out before the crowd. And this little kid's just standing there, 9, 10 years old, and he's like, Kamala Harris is terrible for the economy. And he's like yelling. And I'm like, look at this little guy. Like he was yelling like actual thing, not just like Kamala Harris sucks. It's like she causes too much inflation. And it's like a 10-year-old.
You could be like, what does inflation mean? He'd be like, I don't know. Mommy told me to say that.
Yeah.
I'm just reciting what my parents said.
Exactly. Aren't we all?
To answer, well, I was the one that turned my mom Democrat.
Are you?
Or sorry, turned my mom Republican.
Wow.
She was still driving people to the polls for Obama. Pew, pew, pew. And I was still, I voted for Obama in 2012, but I was not happy about it. And I still think, Romney is a piece of garbage too.
Yeah,
but,
I'm the same. Same.
yeah. So, she was like actively driving people to the polls. Anyways,
Retaliation against your voter, who you vote for. Is there potential that could come back and bite
I highly
people?
doubt it. And in a lot of states, like that's one of the issues I have with voter integrity is like Georgia, they throw away the signatures. Like that's why when they were doing it's impossible to challenge the election results in Georgia in 2020 because they actually get rid of the signatures. It's so dumb. Once you actually do the votes, they can be completely manufactured votes and you wouldn't know because they're not tied to any human or any signature. It's kind of crazy. So to go specifically, will there be retaliation? I highly doubt it. It's way too much work on the back end where they can easily just go and like look at social media, censor you, have different topics. Like it's easier for them to do it in different ways than that. I don't think how you vote will have an effect. Now, say you're in Hollywood and they find a way to get your voting results, maybe. I mean, that's I think where it would be the most, is the industry run most by leftists, but I think it's a stretch. I don't think it's a problem at all.
Okay.
Cool.
Good to know. All right.
Awesome.
We could talk to you all day.
That's right.
Especially my husband could sit here.
It's been great catching up, talking
some
about
great
Kamala
facts.
Harris, how many boosters you've received. I just love that we can talk about this stuff.
Well, I'm going to give you one more interesting thing. So I actually, right before this call, I've had a job with a rodeo company all year, which has been great. It's kept me, afloat above and beyond my Fox stuff. But I knew that it was probably coming to an end. So I actually just found out it'll be my last month in November. And I'm like, all right. And I've said this before, and I feel this, and this is probably a great way to kind of conclude the conversation, is I don't know if I want to, I mean, will I still do maybe like little radio stuff? Do I want to continue with a political show come November 6th?
Right.
And my initial answer right now is no. Like, I just don't. I think after 4 years and 206 episodes, 7 episodes, I don't want to do it anymore. Now, what I will do is I will reach out to Clay Travis. I will reach out to Fox, the connections that I have, and see if there's an opportunity to have real work. But to know that I've garnered a following of 50,000 people, I speak on a pretty regular basis. I do radio, and I lose money monthly to do things that probably are starting to drag on my mental health. I don't think it's worth it anymore. So I have not even told. I've not been very clear yet to Cash and Casey and the people I do the show with, but I don't know if this could be probably my last, win or lose, my last week doing like heavy, hardcore politics, because I've done what I can. And maybe I'll run for politics. That's a different thing. But to be a pundit, I don't, unless I'm getting paid to do it, I just don't know if I can continue down the rabbit hole where it affects my career, relationships, etc. So.
Fair. We support you on that. So we can kind of migrate slightly into what you are doing. So if people want to find you.
And I think I can fully supplement that with what I do with speaking, which is I've been teaching these speaking classes, which each Wednesday gets like better and better. Like there's a lot of people that come back, but I do a free speaking workshop on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Central Time. You go to doubledownspeaking.com. It's free. I let people keep coming back. I call it Toastmasters on steroids. And lately, like everybody that I do a call with afterwards is like, how do I get into the paid class? So it's been very easy. Now it's just an issue of time. So, but skip the paid class. There's a lot of people that have a great amount of enjoyment just in doing the Wednesday. And if it grows to the point where I'll do another one. Like I believe that giving people the ability to use their voice is the most important thing you could possibly do in a world of digital and in person, being able to communicate above and beyond people that are influencers or coaches, or that's their job. The one feedback that I've gotten from people that go through even just the Wednesdays, not just the full program, is that using your voice gets you past all of your limiting beliefs. It's the confidence level that helps you in every aspect of your life. And I've come to the conclusion, thank you to Stefani and a couple other people, that my gift, like I talk about overcoming failure. That's what my book is about. Great. But what I'm best at talking about is how to garner the power of your voice and to use that for good, not evil, and also to make your life better. And in the weird world that we are moving into, the ability to use one's voice is probably the most important tool you could have in your tool belt. So go to doubledownspeaking.com if you want to hang out with this guy.
And I can vouch for you because I met you at the Great American Speak Off, for those people who don't know how our paths crossed. And I signed up for some of your Wednesday courses, and it was literally game changer, because the areas that I was weak in with speaking, within that first free session, it immediately changed everything. I can be very type A and organized in my speeches. If they're prepared, they're solid. But it was the freelance kind of, not freelance, freestyle. Yeah. Where I would get sweaty and nervous. I'm like, because I wasn't in control. I didn't know what to say. And you really helped me just be like, just say blah. And I'm like, oh, that's so simple. And like you simplify it.
Yeah.
And everybody comes in with different challenges, and you have a really great gift to identify those challenges, and you go deeper and you go deeper and you go deeper, and you can really push your speakers to, like you said, find their own voices. And you do it brilliantly and effortlessly. So again, if anybody does want to sign up for those classes, I highly recommend it. They've changed my speaking career. I'm so grateful for you.
You and and the cool thing is like, obviously you didn't go through the class, but we essentially did, because we were doing the masterminds for so long, and it was like all of us working together, you, Andrew, and then now like people that have gone through Henry, people that have gone through the class, like I see it now where it's like, maybe my mind's off someplace else, and I'll have Jay, or who you're going to interview too. I'll have Jay or Henry, and they will speak up and say stuff that I missed. So it's but like stuff that I've said in the past, and their ability to see it. So it's like they're even learning to pick out little things in other people. I had a post with JD Vance the other day. I saw something, because biggest thing about speaking that people forget is active listening. And JD Vance had this whole thing with Theo Vaughn where they were like subjects later, and Theo Vaughn lost his train of thought. And JD Vance is such a good interviewer and so like engaged that he was able to go, are you talking about this? He went back in the conversation.
Wow.
That's right. That was so good.
Fascinating. And nobody else picked up on that, I'm sure, except for like people that really are focused on that. And that ability to truly actively listen is huge. And I will tell you, I do sweat when I speak once in a while, Stefani. I just presented in front of a bunch of high school kids yesterday. I was literally like a bunch of high school kids that are just like guys, and they're all like glazed over face. And I'm like, let me tell you kids about failure. I'm like, holy crap, I am sweating right now. Like, this is not the usual. I can't go to my easy, like perverted jokes or whatever it was. Like if I need to go. So I'm literally just talking to these kids, and it's like, it took a lot to get out of them. And I'm realizing it was already a small room. I'm like, I don't want to lift my arms. I think I'm sweating. I never sweat. So it still happens no matter what, once in a while when you just have a tough crowd, but they were happy.
That's why I opened my whole speech with my armpits are wet, my mouth is dry, and I wish it were the other way around, because it's very true. My armpits are usually wet when I'm speaking, and my mouth gets dry, and I'm like, okay, if I can open it up with being honest, everything else I say will be honest as well. So,
David, did you go the same place I did with the whole I wish the other one was wet, and then I was still forgetting she was talking about armpits, and I was like, this is an awkward conversation. I feel like Tulsi Gabbard needs to be here right now.
Maybe that's why I made it to top 15. All the men tuned out at that point. They were like, hey,
like, wait, what?
Got me.
My mouth is wet now too. What are we talking about?
Gross.
David's about to eat the cats.
That's right.
Amazing. You guys are so good.
Let's wrap it up. We know your political prediction. What is your national championship prediction?
Oh,
for college football?
Who's it gonna be? It's getting fun this year with the new.
I love the playoffs. I would have said Ohio State before they just struggled against Nebraska. Here's the deal: this weekend, Ohio State, Penn State. To me, how that goes is going to determine whether or not there'll be a chance for a Big Ten winner. But it's such a crapshoot. I'll go with Ohio State. Still, I think they had an off week, so I'll go with Ohio State, with secondary being Georgia.
All right.
So you think Georgia will just still stay in there?
Yeah, I think the way they played again, it was Georgia, not Alabama, that beat Texas last week, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
so
I would have said Texas.
So you're saying it's too early, they're going to fall back?
Yeah, I mean, they'll be in the playoffs, and I think they'll be. I don't think they could. When push comes to shove on a big game, like championship game atmosphere, I don't know if they could play against the Ohio States, Texases, or Georgias.
No trust in the West Coast till they're out here a little longer, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, they could. They're fast. That's what they are every year. They're fast. Now, can they? It's dependent. My top, if you want, I'll give my top four.
Okay, and then we're wrapping. So I'm about to wet.
Sorry, Texas, Georgia. Mama's got to pee. Texas, Georgia, Ohio, and that's not in any order. And Ohio State and Oregon, they're in that mix. But
so
those
Penn
are the four teams.
If Penn State knocks off Ohio State,
swap them in.
Okay, that easy. Yeah. And how big is the playoff this year? They're going bigger than 4?
No more questions.
12. Let her go pee.
There you go.
12.
All right, let's wrap it up. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Anthony. We'll link your stuff here.
All right, sounds good. Pleasure.
Time.
Actually, tell me when you post it this time.
Yeah, I will. Sorry, my bad.
Later.
Bye.
Peace out.